Aja Watson. I am the Senior Associate VP for the Placer Center, and it is an inaugural position. So it's a new position that the university has to really continue to move this work forward at a steady pace with our partners.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Otto. I'm the program manager with the WAPMA, and really appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel today. I think what Cameron noted, which is really interesting, we have a waste management facility, but really moving the dialogue from waste to resources and realizing that we have a great opportunity to take the materials that we throw away every day and repurpose those for value for the economy and the environment.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great segue, and yeah, maybe we'll go down this, go down the line with starting with Ryan. Is when we look at circular economy, like what does that kind of look like to you? And like I don't know if you necessarily have a definition, but often it gets lumped into sustainability and all of those. And so want to kind of just break down the language maybe for our audience here. So when you kind of look at the circular economy, what are some of the main components, and how might you kind of look at defining that?
So with circular economy, I would say at a basic level, it's using resources over and over again, and that saves money, but it's also better for the environment. So it's not mining, it's not pulling raw materials out of the earth, because in all reality, we have enough that's already in circulation. And the great thing about that is you can save money a lot of times as well, right? Because you're using waste as a resource instead of looking at it as a one-time thing that then you have to pay to purchase and then pay again to dispose of. So it's putting it back into that cycle.
Do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm going to take exception to one word that you noted there, Ryan, and it's one of mining. And we often refer to our facility as a mining operation. We're actually mining through the waste stream to find those recoverable products. So, there's a whole lot of gold and silver, mixed in with that material, literally and figuratively. I look at it from the standpoint that, for better or worse, our economy, the global economy, is built on a consumer-based model where there are a lot of materials that are intended to be one-time use or maybe multi-time use that don't really get used to those the fullest advantage. But we had the opportunity, at least on our side, with Waste Management Authority, to harvest those materials and find a new purpose for them, whether that's introducing them to produce new products, like in the case of aluminum cans and cardboard, perfect examples, or being able to look at taking plastics and organics and finding the fuel value and the energy value out of those products, and realizing that we can continue to harvest these materials and realize value and reduce the impacts on the environment, like you noted. And that really is the key, is that we're gifted this planet. We need to take care of it. And yet it's so easy to oftentimes to not do that. And we're trying to really set up a model where it doesn't have to be difficult to do the right thing. It doesn't have to be economically disadvantaged to do the right thing. We can realize value in the products that we deal with every day.
So yeah, I think one of the things when we're looking at building out this industry, it takes investment of one, kind of setting a vision of how do we actually one, attract people to innovate and repurpose that value, to then also investing in technology. And I know WAPMA has done so, and kind of being able to sort through waste more efficiently and effectively. And so maybe we'll start with Eric, and kind of how has the facility invested in helping make that easier for innovators or entrepreneurs to repurpose some of the waste, and then maybe to the Sac State team, how we maybe do that here on campus, and then what maybe a vision for that in the Placer Center would look like. So.
Well, you just teed me up right there. I mean, we're so excited about this opportunity right now. Our agency is investing $120 million to upgrade our facility, to improve our ability to efficiently pull more materials out of the waste stream and find value in them. We're using automation on that, so relying less on just human labor of picking materials and using technology to help us more efficiently harvest those materials. But I think to your point about developing entrepreneurship and innovation, is that we have quite a bit of space on our campus to allow for the siting of pilot studies all the way up through commercial enterprises, realizing that we have an opportunity to work with these entities and help site them next to us. We have the resources, we have the infrastructure, we have the land. We're looking for the idea. And that's where there's really a really interesting nexus between us and Sac State and the Carlson Center, is helping to get that word out there that we're looking for those ideas, we're open to those ideas. And if we're really going to move the needle on how we manage the environment, our waste stream, our planet, it's going to take a lot of voices from the public side, from the private side, from the, the higher education side, to really come together and take a different approach to how we address this very, crucial problem.
Just a quick follow-up, are other waste facilities doing this, or is this atypical in the industry?
From what I understand, it maybe gained some traction, but it really is rather atypical. I feel like the authority is charting a rather new path here. It seems to me and my coworkers that it's intuitively obvious that we should be doing this, but it's different. It's challenging, and it's not the easy path. And I think that for so long, it's easier to take that straight path of just throw something away and put it in the hole and be done with it. But that's not the best way to go in the long run. So we're taking the challenging path, and maybe we're blazing that pathway, but I hope that others see what the authority is doing and learns from it, and we become a model for others.
So we'll maybe pass it to Vajra here. And so kind of, as you think of, and maybe what you've heard from, your listening of kind of envisioning the future of Placer Center, and kind of obviously the connectivity we have to the facility right next door. We'd love to kind of like how that maybe looks from what you've heard. And obviously we're not set in stone of what that's looking like. And I know, just to add one thing on what Eric was saying was, I toured the facility, probably a year or so ago, and it's just pretty eye-opening to see, the impact we have on our environment from that particular lens, right? You don't always see it at the end of use. It's like in the can, and you don't always see where that goes. And so that perspective is really, really valuable. So I don't know if it's open for tours to the community, but I know that was eye-opening for me. So.
Yeah, and a lot of our faculty are actually going to go tour on Friday, and I am as well. This conversation really excites me for the Sac State community, because, all of us probably have seen, whether in person or on videos, dump sites globally, trash and unrecycled materials. This is a global crisis. And so where some see trash, it really seems like Placer is seeing transformation. And in the spirit of transformation, I get very excited what that means for our students and our faculty to become global problem solvers. So if we understand that, we have an emergency, a global emergency on our hands, then what does that mean as a kind of intellectual and curious institution to be able to say, how do we build these partnerships in a way that we become an international model? So that's, I think, a small step of this larger vision for the Placer Center of being the innovation hub of Northern California. I think we get there with these type of, intersections, and understanding that when our students are able to apply what they're learning in the classroom. I'm a huge advocate for paid academic internships, getting our students into those spaces, supporting faculty to teach differently in a more experiential way. And all of this really lays the foundation for some brilliant outcomes for all of us.
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on the innovation aspect. So I think one of the interesting things is that California as a state is significantly further than most of the other states in the US in regards to this. And with a love-hate relationship, a lot of that is because of policy and regulations in the state of California. But the nice thing about that is when the state puts policies like organics mandates into place, it creates an incentive for that innovation. And so, a lot of times the state is putting in policies and regulations for things that we need to do, and we know we need to do it, but we don't know how we're going to do it or how we're going to get there, how we're going to comply. And so this is kind of the same thing. A good example of that is at the CSU as a system level, we have to abide by an organics mandate. And when the mandate first came out, Most of the Southern California CSUs could not send their organic waste to an appropriate facility because there were none within driving distance. So the policy required that they handle their organic waste in a manner that aligned with it. However, working with their waste haulers and their local versions of Western Placer Waste Authority, they weren't able to find anyone. So we're lucky in that we have a few different places in this area that can handle that. And our area, Northern California, has been kind of ahead of the game. But that right there shows you a perfect example where the majority of the population in California is in Southern California, and a lot of those groups could not comply with new state policy. So they were immediately out of compliance as soon as it hit. So
Within kind of that, like the larger industry of, repurposing waste, like, is there a particular need that's more urgent? Or, I guess what I'm thinking of is like, is it the organics or is it certain recyclables, or where do you see the greatest need, maybe from the facility kind of, I don't know if it's at the end of life component of it, if I'm using the right jargon there. But then, and then to like Ryan, probably on the campus, where is our biggest gap in trying to meet our sustainability and circular economy needs?
That's a really interesting question. It's only almost like a multi-headed hydra. In that
Never had one of those questions.
Yes, there are so many opportunities here. So as I mentioned, say like cardboard and aluminum cans, readily recyclable, but those have to be transported maybe halfway across the United States, if you're lucky. So there's a significant environmental impact just of taking materials from one point to another. I think that the more existential risk right now is associated with climate change, which is why the organics mandates are in place, is to reduce the amount of methane that is methane potential from landfills. I think that is the greatest issue that all of us waste management entities and everybody upstream that produces any kind of organic waste needs to deal with. But with that said, I think we can always find ways to improve the system, whether that's through improving recyclability, improving markets, because that really is the driver, and bringing those in more locally and improving the economics and reducing the environmental impact. So while we may have a steady market for some product right now, it doesn't mean that we can't make that better, improve upon that. So that's where, this is really a lot of different fronts. And so anybody who's out there that's interested in this sector, don't think that, well, I'm not dealing with organics right now, so I'm out. I'm more interested in plastics. Okay, plastics are great, or metals, or fibers, or anything like that, is that we're all in this together, and there's an opportunity to improve those systems incrementally over time. My colleagues and I have taken on the thought that there have been recycling markets globally for years and years and years. But why continue to send something halfway across the world when we can send it across the street? There's a lot of, tremendous benefits regionally for being able to do that. And then to integrate and have the educational component, where I'm so glad to hear what you said about integrating the classroom with, a facility such as ours or any other facility. But we look at it as we have a 1,000-acre lab sitting right next door, that it gives students that opportunity to do something real life, see how things react in a real world situation, and then find a career pathway for them that excites them.
Awesome. We'll maybe pass that down to Ryan. And as you're kind of teeing up, I know I'm like thinking, how do we, preempt as we're building the Placer Center, like creating these solutions beforehand before it's built, so we kind of can integrate that as one of my thought processes that I'm going through, is like, we have these challenges here and now, how can we get ahead of that also as we're building a new campus and creating a different culture up there as well.
Yeah, I will say one of the big issues that we struggle with is the whole idea of locally compostable, locally recyclable, kind of to Eric's point. But it's two-sided, right? You need to have materials that are being used in the products that align with what can be recycled and composted locally. And I think that's kind of the part that needs to be focused on. You kind of have to look at production, but then you also have to align that with, at the end of the day, what's going to happen with that product. And I think that's where a lot of the opportunity is, especially in the innovation space, is what products can be used up front in place of single-use plastics and things like that. And you're seeing some changes in the industry, like, for example, the other day I saw a seaweed-based like six-pack, the plastic rings. But that's kind of an example of you have the main product, the raw material that's being used, and then you're aligning it with the waste stream at the end of the day, and then circling it back into the same system. So that's what we struggle with the most is, we have signage all through campus that shows here, this is where you put this and this and this. But it can change based on, this facility closed down or this place doesn't accept this anymore. And so then you're constantly trying to train people on, okay, put this in this bin and this in this bin. Okay, but this changed. So now we're going to update the signs. Now you put it in this bin. So if you can avoid that struggle, because at the end of the day, that's behavior change as well, which is hard enough in itself without things changing so constantly. But if you can put materials into the system that are designed to go into the system instead of making it work, I think that's where a lot of the opportunity lies.
I like it. Maybe we'll start with Vajra here, and then we'll work our way wherever we need to go. But thinking of kind of like, say, an innovator or someone has an idea, would be curious of, from your perspective, how they might partner in the classroom to advance that going forward, whether that's through research or engaging students, and then maybe from the Sustainability Center lens, how someone with an idea could partner with you, and then we'll go to the facility from there.
So I think, as you said, what does it mean to have a 1,000 square foot lab, like a learning lab, right? Because I think the more that we can see our partners, just not through the kind of traditional kind of P3 partnership, and this is what it's going to mean at the institutional level, but really driving that down at the instructional level. I do think it starts with exciting faculty, where faculty can say, how does this connect to the curriculum? And then working with folks like yourself and others, understanding your career path and how you got into this business and what you majored in. And, sometimes I was in a meeting right before this with the Sacramento Kings that want to talk about hospitality training. And they're like, we just wish that, students would not look at us as just a basketball team, but look at us as all the different professional, connections that could be made. But again, I think that all that happens in this relational space of getting to know the industry partner at a very deep level, and then connecting it to classroom practices. And students really can become that bridge, because they're going to be taking what they learn and then applying it, and then hopefully also, perhaps even getting jobs from it, and really having this regional impact. The other thing that I would say, for Placer, our first building will likely be up in 2028, and we'll have 4 buildings between 2028 and 2032. And that's exciting. There's some backwards mapping to do to get us there. And that's really just the beginning. So part of when I talk about the Placer possibilities, it's really having a vantage point that's the next 100 days, and then it's also the next 100 years. So what does it mean to be a future forecaster in the space of being able to envision, what circular economies look like in 100 years? That's a bold question for our faculty and our partners, but it's actually a very exciting place to be as co-creators of innovation and solutions. And, if not Sac State, then who, right?
Love Placer possibilities. That's great. We'll go to Ryan here. I love all of that.
Yeah. So honestly, the thing that's most exciting about the whole Placer Center and this collaboration is it's like a massive campus as a living lab. So my team has been kind of using that idea for a lot of our projects for years, because we're trying to, again, comply with state policies, but we're trying to reduce energy waste, water, greenhouse gas emissions. That's our goal as a team. But again, we don't know how we're going to get there, but there's 30,000 students on campus, and a bunch of them are doing cool projects that could help us get there. Plus, it's a good hands-on experience. And so we've been able to do a lot of that over the years. We have a facility on site. It's called the Backyard. It's a composting facility. And that's kind of how that started, was we wanted a way to compost. And so we worked with student groups, and they designed vermicompost systems for us, worked with us to learn how to use them. Laura on my team built a digester recently. And so those are some projects that we're in the unique position that we are a university, and we can tinker, we can do things like that. And that's super exciting. So, we also had with mechanical engineering students that have built various things for us. When we were composting, the next iteration was that we were finding a lot of trash in our compost. So how do we remedy that? I'm not sure. So we worked with a group of mechanical engineering students, and they said, well, we can come up with this thing called a trommel. I had never heard of a trommel before. It's like a filtration device. And so they're like, yeah, we'll do it for our student project. They physically built it, and now we still use it on campus as a means of improving the quality of the compost. But that's kind of the unique position that being an institution like this, an academic institution, and having the ability to tap into that is just, it's very exciting. And so the Placer Center is kind of like the next iteration of that very basic example.
I love some of those comments that both of you made, the long-term vision, the 100-year vision. And it's critical. I mean, it's critical that that's the vision that we have. It isn't just how do we get there this fiscal year, or this next decade, but it really is setting the stage for a huge transitional change culturally. And Ryan, I love hearing the anecdotes of the different students, coming together to figure out a challenge. And as you're talking about that, I don't think any of us individually has the answer. If we did, the problem wouldn't be that challenging. It's that we know where we need to be, and that is crystallizing, at least in our view, is that destination is becoming so much more clear. The pathway is never straight, and there's going to be a lot of zigs and zags, and we're going to need a lot of voices and a lot of folks involved to figure out how to make that journey. But as long as we're doing it together, I'm very confident we're going to make it. This is extremely exciting. I've worked my whole career to get to this point, and I just love to see where we, as a group of interested individuals and institutions, are working to get to, of realizing we can do something good for the environment, something good for the region, our culture, our students. One of my colleagues who's in the audience right now, Emily, I'm going to give you a shout out on this one, because she came to us about a year ago, and I have never seen someone with so many creative ideas that she has just taken the authority and kind of put it on steroids. One of her ideas, and bear with me for a little bit because it will eventually, hopefully, lead to some more clientele, is for many years, the authority has engaged with elementary school students and brought them on tours so they can see how the facility works. And historically, we've kind of left it at that, whereas Emily said, no, there's a different way to do this, is get them at the elementary level and give them the first taste of the facility, of how things work, so they understand when they're at home. Then you hit them at the junior high level, and you start to have them come up with more engaged problem. And then it becomes at the high school level, where they're actually tackling a problem and working together as a team. And then on to the university level, where now it's something that they're really putting into practice. And like you mentioned, Ryan, is coming up with a trommel, and how do they screen out that compost to make it a better, more marketable product. And instead of waiting until the end, is having that culture happen at a very early age and consistently through the grades, so that by the time they do make it to university level and professional level, this is something that is so ingrained, and they've had these ideas and they've seen these successes, and they'll look back and go, I can't believe they didn't have this figured out, because it's so clear to us now. But we have to help chart that path for them.
I'm going to build on the path, or Placer Possibilities is the pathway to Placer Possibilities that you're building out there. So I think the last question I had, and then maybe we'll turn to some audience questions. So I'm going to also borrow from you here, Vajra, was like thinking of the 100 days and then 100 years. Would love to kind of see what that looks like from your visions of the Placer Possibilities. Like, what is that 100 days? Maybe how do we work together to start working towards some sort of vision, and long beyond us, what might that look like for a hub around the circular economy and innovation. Whoever wants to take it first.
I was really inspired when you talked about the living labs. And so I do think that higher education is really at this kind of, I wouldn't say an identity crisis, but really trying to figure out how to stay relevant, how to connect more to workforce, how to be very strategic about access and equity. And so when I think about this kind of longer vision, I do think it connects to reconceptualizing the purpose of higher education in society and in our lives. So when you say these living laboratories, what does it mean to embody learning differently? I think that sometimes as academics, we can be very focused on studying problems and almost developing cycles of pessimism. If we start shifting towards solutions, right, and also to the work that you're doing, you're starting that at such a young age, right, in young people's kind of relationship to circular economies and all that. But at scale, what that means to actually see ourselves as collaborative problem solvers, as people that are going to be really able to look 100 years into the future and backwards map some kind of revolutionary ideas. And so to that, the earlier point of like where somebody sees, you know, trash, maybe Placer or our students are seeing transformation, I don't know necessarily what that's going to look like. And it's kind of to your point, it's in the kaleidoscope, it's in the togetherness that those discoveries come into formation. So part of, I think, the institutional role is to kind of build the kaleidoscope, build opportunities for those type of new kinds of meaning making to happen, and just then create those challenges. Like, you know, I just think of so many different, you know, I mean, it's so horrible that I'm thinking about like a game show type thing like Chopped, where you open the bag though. I don't know if any of you guys have watched Chopped, but like, what if you opened the bag and it was all different trash objects and you had to invent something from what you find in the bag? And it's, you know, I mean, just these type of things that there's so much brilliance right here. And I think sometimes we have to freedom dream our way into our Placer possibilities.
What about?
I think you nailed it.
They're like Placer.
Yeah, it's hard to top that. I mean, I love the Chopped analogy. And just to provide a little bit of a story, because as Emily knows, you know, one of my core jobs as program manager is to tell stories. Because that's how we, you know, all joking aside, that's how we communicate with each other. It's as a species, we tell stories and we learn from each other. But a number of years ago, we were doing a tour with a fourth grade class that my wife was helping teach. And I will give her full credit on this one. She said, let's do exactly what you're talking about. We put bins together with random stuff that we found out at the facility, and then broke up the class, this fourth grade class that took the tour, into groups. And because they were studying California as fourth graders, they had to take all this trash treasure in their buckets and build something California specific. And it was a competition, a timed competition, and to see what would happen at the end. And then workers at the site were the ones that judged it. And to see the creativity and collaboration between these fourth graders and the excitement. I've never seen a group of young people that were so excited and having so much fun learning and working together. And I think that, you know, we can take that little essence and foster that and grow that and keep pushing and challenging and, you know, tackling more and more difficult problems. But at the same time, we can do it with a smile on our face and this feeling of I'm making progress, I'm working together, and I'm finding solutions.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. So I'm a very tactile learner, and so a lot of the great aspects of sustainability and waste reduction and kind of all the stuff that we're talking about today is a lot of the science is very tangible. And so the really, in my opinion, the really cool thing is that you get to learn about something and then potentially build it and see it in front of you and then have it solve a problem. And I think that's a lot of the issues related to climate change and waste. It's very, very tangible right in front of you. This is an issue that we need to resolve now. And so being able to come up with a solution and have it not just be a theoretical solution, but physically build something and make an impact right away is really exciting. That's why I'm in this industry at all, to be honest.
Very good. Awesome. We'll want to open up. Yeah.
My name is Mike Snell.
I can give you this.
My name is Mike Snell. I'm an entrepreneur, business owner in the cannabis industry, but I'm interested in the renewable energy space more so since we're segueing into aggressively electrification of everything. Do you guys, and I'm questioning a lot of people in these different rooms that are in this space, do you guys have a pulse on any programs like for repair recycling of lithium batteries to include existing hybrid cars batteries and solar battery backups? Because that's I see the pot boiling, as you know, we're going to have solutions now. So that's something I'm looking to expand with here locally as a base model, starting with an engineer gave me an idea, the just simple battery breakdown plan. And then we can sort out precious metals, toxins, whatever else can go away. And then what can we repurpose what's left behind? And I'm just curious if you guys think that's a good idea.
I'll touch on that, but I think you definitely have something to say about that. So yeah, that's the interesting thing with the solar industry, renewable, right? You're kind of seeing the first wave of all the early solar systems and battery storage. They're kind of coming to an end. So from my perspective, I have not seen a good way of being able to, I personally haven't seen any companies that are taking that and making a new product. There may be, but it's not readily available from our perspective. And so I think that that's critical because we pulled all those raw materials out of the earth and we have to do something with them. And if we don't recycle them and make more like new, more efficient panels and more efficient batteries using the same raw materials, then we're just kind of perpetuating the cycle. So I think it's exactly right. I think it's an awesome idea. And I think as California is pushing more and more renewables, there's a huge need for it.
I want to thank you for even thinking about this.
Yes.
I echo what Ryan says, is I'm not aware of systems out there to really tackle this emerging issue. But that's really what we're talking about today is how do you set the stage for entrepreneurs? How do you set the stage for the circular economy? How do you provide space and infrastructure and funding and everything else to support this? Because it is a need that we absolutely have. We can see it coming. It's racing towards us. And it's real easy for most decision makers just to look the opposite way because it's too hard. There's no model that they can follow. But I think that that's the wrong approach. We have to say, yes, we need to do it. So let's figure out a system. Let's, provide you space to try this with a group and let you explore, let you fail because you need to fail until you succeed, until you crack that nut. Because again, these are not easy problems. If they were, they wouldn't be problems at all. But it's great to hear this. And before we leave, I'm going to give you my card because I think this is exactly what we're looking for. And I'm going to give a little pitch to our next pitch competition that we're kicking off right now and we'll wrap up in Earth Day or Earth Week next year, is looking for entrepreneurs like yourself to bring these types of ideas and work with the authority, receive some funding from us to be able to start a pilot project and figure out how to achieve a reasonable solution to these projects. Federal grants. Fantastic. See, so I encourage you to keep pushing and keep having these conversations and engage with us because this is how we move the needle, is one idea at a time.
I like what you said, 100 years forward and still remapping that. That's exactly how I ended up here.
Well, and I will say that I had someone from Fresno State actually asked me a similar
Born in Fresno.
Okay, so there's something happening in Fresno with an answer to your question. I'll connect you with some folks there, just in terms of like closing some of the loops. And then also, Bosch is building a $1.5 billion semiconductor in the Placer area, which again is a really interesting thing when we talk about kind of renewable electronics, how things are going to be, how electronics are also part of a circular economy model. So that's just something also to put out there as we think about the Placer region and kind of the future. Someone had asked, yeah, it's interesting. I really like the question. Great question.
Danny, you have a question? And here, I'll give this to you.
I'm a social entrepreneur and I need contacts for recycled styrofoam, polypropylene, silicone, and thermoplastic elastomers. If you guys can put me in touch with someone to talk about what I'm working on.
That's definitely not me.
And that is definitely me. So yes, I'll give you my card as well. That's, I think, really the beauty of the authority system is that, again, we're able to mine the products that people need. So if you say, I need these materials, then, we're the right folks to talk to. And again, being able to find, if you say, I'm interested in utilizing these products and I need a place to put some form of facility to test out my ideas, we're able to do that as well. So, again, this is how we really move the needle. This is how we develop sustainable markets here in our region, is fostering these entrepreneurial ideas and providing that landing ground for folks to test out their ideas.
First, thank you for, Thomas Hall from Clean Start. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing. I'm excited for the big plant out there, and Placer actually grew up out there, so it'll be good to see that resource get really utilized. But you talked a lot about the impacts that there's and how this is going to work with the CSU and the college here. But there's a lot of groups outside of that that are working on innovations in the circular economy that I wish some of them were here to hear from you guys today. But I was hoping to learn more about how are you guys maybe connecting this with communities, with other communities, maybe smaller groups that are working on smaller projects.
I think I'm happy to take that one. Happy to connect, obviously, with Clean Start and some of the partners. I think last year was kind of a test pilot for us as a partnership and kind of launching that. And so would love to, if there's any particular groups that come to mind, is key. And we've kind of built the foundation of our partnership to then be able to expand those tentacles out. One of the things that Eric alluded to is we will be doing another iteration of the innovation competition. So we'll be opening applications that I can send to certainly to yourself and then to spread to the Clean Start partners. And then that competition will end during Earth Week with a pitch competition. So, but to that is more open to possibilities than there being anything established. I don't know if you wanted to chat more about any of that. But was there anyone in particular that you're thinking of?
Shira Lane's really active in
Yeah.
the space, and I know there's been others, but
Yeah, so Shira was one of the, she applied last year, and so she's, one of the partners on our list as we go forward. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Ethan Bradley from Bradley Social. I really resonated with what you said about higher education struggling to stay relevant because I'm super practical. I'm hands-on. I've been a full-time student at university for the last 4 years, and I spend more time on my business than I do on school. And I've taken, probably 40 classes, 30 business classes so far. And I'd say only 1 or 2 of them actually felt relevant to me, and the rest of them just felt like answering questions out of a textbook, doing quizzes. And I'm sitting there and I feel like it's ridiculous because I'll take a couple advertising classes, never make 1 ad. I'll take a marketing communications class, never send an email to 1 customer. The fact that you can, go through a whole marketing track without having to sell anyone 1 thing once is insane. And if instead of all these, random classes, they just had you, instead of filing a major, you just filed your business at the beginning of your college track, and each professor just gave you their perspective on coaching your business as you went through, people would be leaving colleges with businesses that were actually generating revenue. And if they weren't, they could certainly get a job off of those experiences. But it's really hard to find a class that feels relevant. And the few that I do find are my favorites, but it's less than 10% of the business classes I'm taking right now, which is why I spend all my time here, because the space is full of people that actually do things. And that's not to say I don't like my professors or I don't like my classmates, but it's hard. They just don't feel relevant, So I really resonate with that. I don't have a question, but it's just whenever I like hear someone say that, I'm like, ah, they're seeing something that I'm seeing, and I feel like not a lot of other people are seeing it.
I definitely agree.
Well, maybe we can turn it into a question. So as we kind of look at the sustainability or circular economy, how might we integrate that? Just, I don't know that I'm definitely not a faculty member, so I'm not, sure on how to necessarily apply that to the curriculum, but would maybe from your perspective of engaging that, how might we make it a little more tangible, and having some of those experiences, obviously tied more to the circular economy. I don't know if there's any ideas, maybe something that you've seen already taking place.
Well, I was going to say, I can't speak to the academic piece because I am not in academia. However, I am at a university, and a lot of the student groups that we've worked with, we are the opportunity for them to get that hands-on engagement, right? Because we operate more like a customer at the end of the day. Here's our need. We can give you some funding and some money for the raw materials or whatever it is you need to get going. But the expectation is you take the things you've learned theoretically in your classes, and I want to see something, right? Because I'm helping because there's a need. Also because we're at a university and I love working with students, right? So it's kind of a no-brainer. But that setup is just it's different than a traditional academic environment where you're in a class, you learn about it, you write a paper, and that's the end of it. Because I want to see the end product, because we're trying to reduce energy, water, waste, and greenhouse gas emissions as a team and as a university. And we can do it while students are getting some hands-on and real-world experience along the way.
So earlier he talked about kind of what the recycling and the engineering students or that design something very hands-on. So I think at the Sac State kind of level, to your point, is we have to shine a much better light on when those moments of experiential learning are happening, when faculty are building in some internships, when things like what you just mentioned occur, because that then curates some more inspiration for other faculty to be like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to do the standard worksheets and what have you. But a lot of times we're siloed and we don't know what other departments are doing. So I think part of it is hosting things like this, but really trying to surface where those innovations are already happening and then building and expanding on them so they become more sustainable in the long term.
Actually, well, I'll add one other thing. It's not just the students, though. What I've found fascinating is we have a lot of faculty that are reaching out to us because they realize that their students want that. But universities a lot of times are places that are siloed, right? And so they kind of know the world that they work in, and that's it, right? They know it very well, but they're so excited when they reach out to us or we reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to use some of our actual data? So like from our dashboard, we have energy dashboards on campus. So we have environmental studies faculty who will use our actual data from the campus as a teaching tool. Well, that's real world information, right? You can see it and you can look up your building. What building are we in? What is our energy use for the last 6 months? You can look at it month after month. But I think that resonates with a lot of students because it's real, right? It's not theoretical. And so it's the faculty that are also kind of, I think, really desiring that, because over the years, we've had more and more faculty who are like, I really like getting these real world examples and working with my students through this. And so, again, I agree completely.
Yeah, how students and faculty can reach out to the Office of Sustainability to be part of all of that, Ryan?
So this is Laura Gonzalez, who is our waste and sustainability coordinator for the campus. So honestly, the best bet is you can just email our office, www.csus. Wait, that's our website. Hold on one second. Just email me, ryan.todd@csus.edu. But we also have a website, and there's a lot of great information on there. That is www.csus.edu/sustainability. So if you just go to the Sac State website and use the little hourglass and search sustainability, you'll find our website. But that dashboard that I mentioned is on there. You can look at the campus's compost, organics, landfill, recycling, our solar production, electricity usage at the building level, whatever information. We have a ton of stuff on there, so feel free to peruse.
Very good. Any last Yep. All right. Here we go. Last question, and then I'll do a last one for the.
Hi, my name is Elijah. So I'm having a hard time grasping, I guess, the general phase that you're forming these partnerships at. There's a lot of startup accelerators that focus on like maybe seed stage. They've already passed the created a minimally viable product or proof of concept. Where is this program primarily directed towards?
So I think that each of us will probably want to answer that separately because we each kind of have our own things that we're doing and we're all gravitating towards each other for what will be hopefully a really cool collaboration up in Placer as part of the Placer Center. But I can say from my department's perspective, right, we reduce energy, water, waste, greenhouse gas emissions. That's our goal as a team at Sac State. So we will work with anyone, regardless of our collaborations and everything. We've been doing this for years. And so if there's ever groups, they don't have to be Sac State groups, but who have some type of innovative product they want to trial, we always are willing to work with them. Again, we've worked with groups on campus and off campus, but it always comes back to our primary goals of reducing energy, water, and waste. So I don't care at what point you're, in that scale, reach out if you have an idea and we'll partner. And I'll pass it to Vajra for her focus.
So mine's a little bit different. We have 301 acres of land in Placer County. And right now we're working on the academic plan for that. One of the first partnerships that we have with the county is to build an interdisciplinary forensics lab that also has teaching space. So I'm really working with the faculty and the deans on all things that could fall under interdisciplinary forensics. I'm learning a lot because the faculty are bringing ideas that I would not even consider related to forensics, and they're demonstrating that. So that's just a very small step of what we're doing. And then obviously there's other, various partnerships, the living lab that we have next door, and then really being able to, create the opportunities that will drive kind of what happens out there. So that's just a very short-term answer.
And our program, it's been in place now for a couple of years, where we are very interested in hearing from entrepreneurs or innovators, where they may be able to take some of the products that we're able to recover from the waste stream, or to be able to look at our processes and figure out, are there ways to do things more cost effectively, more sustainably. So it doesn't even have to be with taking a material stream that we deal with, but are there ways that we can be doing our job more sustainably? And that can be anywhere from someone with a pilot idea that hasn't done any kind of proof of concept yet, but is interested in being able to test and get proof of concept, all the way up to commercial scale. So, we're having dialogues with, at the student level, all the way up to multinational companies and everywhere in between. So, we're really at even though we've been doing it for a couple of years, we're very much at the start of this journey. And as I noted earlier, there's not a whole lot of examples to go by. So we're kind of working our way through this at the same time that innovators would. We're trying to innovate at the same time.
I think just building on that, I think the intake would be different, right? If you have like an idea, proof of concept, like the scale of investment, say from a partner would be, what you would expect on the risk of early stage venture versus something that's proven out. This is, what that would actually look like in terms of how that partnership might go about. So I think just in terms of the competition, there's a variety of ideas that you can submit, and don't hold back if you're way far down the line, because there might already be that applicability. But if you just have an idea, it's always a great opportunity then for us to say, oh, well, maybe you're not ready for this, but maybe we could do something with Ryan and do some research or something on campus here, right? And so it's really about putting that out there and then being able to navigate the resources from there. So the last question I have, just real briefly, is how can this community support each of you in working towards a more circular economy and that Placer possibilities?
Well, I think just having these communications is a big
Yeah.
first start. I mean, it really is, and that may sound like a cop-out, but for so long in, I think, probably all of our careers, and you use the word siloed, and it's so true, is that we've been siloed. My industry has been historically thought of as just being at the end of the line, and you send stuff to the dump and you get rid of it, and that's the end of the story. And we're really trying to change that narrative, but you can't just do it alone. Emily and I can't just stand outside and scream into the wind because it doesn't do anything. We have to have these types of conversations to bring us to that nexus point where we're all working towards the same goal, and we can see it. We can see that intersection. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting that much closer. And it's through these types of communications and engagements and interest from others.
So I just appreciate, again, like everyone that came today, I appreciate the panel, the conversation, so that we can even find out where the intersections are. And then I'm a huge advocate of the field trip, right? So, going to visit, your facility, walking the land, like getting also out of the building. So allowing this to be the catalyst for work that then happens outside of the building. So we can kind of breathe some fresh air together and like dream a little together. I know it's probably like a little
Fresh air is relative.
I know, I'm about to say. I realized it right after I said it. But the thing is, we want a world of fresh air.
That's right.
And if we want a world of fresh air, then we have to understand circular economies. And so I just say that I had to save myself there a little bit. But in any case, being in the building, starting conversations, getting out of the building to walk the work into the world. And so I appreciate that facilitation.
Yeah, I would say, again, touching on the silos, don't work in a silo. In all reality, things are successful when there's collaborations happening. And so kind of think outside of your bubble and don't be afraid to take chances and reach out to people that you think might be interested. Our department is an example, right? If you any cool ideas, reach out to us. At a minimum, we can kind of help get you set up with other people if it's not, in our wheelhouse. But don't be afraid to kind of push the envelope.
Awesome. Well, let's give it up for our panel here, and thank you all for being here and part of the discussion. So I know it sounds like there's a couple connections that need to happen, which is great. Our next event will be off campus at the Flamingo House for startup happy hour. So if you want to join us there, that'll be at 5 o'clock. And hope to see you then. And thank you again for the great discussion, and look forward to Placer Possibilities. I think that one might stick. So thank you. So thank you all. Cheers.
This was so amazing. I'm so excited.
Me too.
I was already excited for Friday, and I'm so grateful you set that up. And now I'm like I'm just like,